Fantasy football fans, this is it. The NFL season is here. It's opening week, and that means that FanDuel is back. There are new contests on FanDuel every single week. You just pick a contest, choose your team, and you get to watch the score in real time. It's super fun. You guys know about FanDuel, and this year they're introducing beginner contests for new players only. You can settle a score with a friend in a head-to-head matchup. You can try 50-50 contests where the top half win cash, and you can play in larger tournaments for even more excitement. And so you want to jump into FanDuel. You want to do it early. The NFL season kicks it off tonight with the Panthers and the Broncos game, and you want to get everything that fantasy football has to offer. So at FanDuel, you can be sports rich. You can sign up today. Go to FanDuel.com, click the Join Now button, and use the code BALLERS. And if you deposit today, you will get 5 free entries to NFL beginner contests. You'll get 1 free entry a week for 5 weeks in a row, and they're 50-50 contests where the top half of players win cash. So don't forget to use the promo code BALLERS for 5 free entries on FanDuel.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
The Jason dancing during this intro has been so fantastic. At one point, he had the snap going like he looked like Frank Sinatra.
He is the resident Pillsbury Doughboy of the studio.
I think he's excited for tonight.
Well, yes, I'm excited for football, and it's here. It is tonight. Even just hearing, your FanDuel read talking about, there's real football.
I know.
It's gonna matter. It's gonna be worth something. It's going to give us points. It's going to give my opponent points.
I have 2 players in tonight's game, which I'm not super excited
I
about.
was gonna say I'm sorry.
I'm not very excited.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I have Jonathan Stewart and Emmanuel Sanders going tonight.
Ooh.
So we'll see what happens there. Let's start off this. Do you guys have picks for tonight's game? I can give you my score pick.
Oh, you've got a
score pick?
Yeah.
You have the specific score. I want to hear it. I
somebody
definitely know who I think is going to win the game.
Somebody asked my opinion about it, and so I thought about it, and I think that the Broncos are going to win tonight's game, and I think it's going to be 19-16.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be a little bit ugly, a little bit dirty, and I think the home team wins.
You are reading my mind because that is exactly how I see this game going. Low scoring, high defense, ugly affair, and I also think that the Trevor Siemian-led Broncos defeat the Cameron Newton-led Panthers, which technically both of us are predicting an upset because the Panthers are, according
Favored
to
on the
Vegas,
road.
favored to win.
Before Mike gives his, did you see this news where Elway actually sat down with Siemian yesterday and told him he does not have to look over his shoulder for Paxton Lynch? He wanted to let him know, and him and Kubiak have a good relationship too, and wanted to let him know you can go out there. If you make mistakes, just bounce back. Mistakes are going to happen.
That's how you coach.
Don't look over
Seriously.
your shoulder. That's what he said. He said,
great.
go out there. You have to play. You got to let him play. It made me feel better about Siemian.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing. I'm taking the Broncos. I have one dispute with Jason's logic of saying it's the Siemian-led Broncos because I would call it the Von Miller-led Broncos.
Sure, yes.
And that's where I'm going. I'm taking the home team.
It was more of a joke.
I mean, it's a lot like Houston has been for years.
The
It's the Watt-led Texans. Let me set the table for the show today. We have a great one for you. We have our debate of the week, the Fandings.com debate of the week. We're going to be talking, Mike and I will be facing off in the debate, talking about TJ Yeldon. We have our news and notes. We'll get you caught up on everything you need to know about fantasy football so you can make roster decisions this weekend, start and sit decisions. We have our fantasy forecast. We're covering the matchups for the first half of this week, which is awesome because we have football to cover. And we have our starts of the week.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, I've got a surprise during the show. I mean,
Ooh.
I'm going to be bringing back something from last year, but you're going to have to wait for it.
If you were watching the video, Andy, in fact, snatched
I did.
it out of the air, and he said he's bringing it back.
I'm bringing it back. It's great to be back.
It's good to be back, America.
It's good to be back in the regular season mindset here. So we have essentially a jam-packed show that won't possibly be as short as it's supposed to be, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Drive around the block.
It doesn't
keep
matter.
Listening.
So before we do the debate, I do want one more thing from you guys. It's not fantasy related, but maybe it is in a way. I want to know some Super Bowl picks.
Oh, we're kicking the season off.
You've got to do it. I want to know. We're gonna go NFC, AFC winner and Super Bowl pick. So you got 60 seconds. Lay it down.
I'm going not right now.
All right, I will go right now. My AFC pick is going to be – I think there's only 4 teams that could actually contend. I am going to go with the Patriots. Yes, I know they are the front runner. It's not the beautiful pick, but Tom Brady's going to come back from his suspension on fire, and he's going to take them all the way. And spoiler alert already, they win it. Okay, they win the Super Bowl, but who they play against, you two are not going to like at all.
This is Seattle.
I am picking Seattle. I think it's going to come out of the NFC West between the Cardinals and Seattle. And the reality is I trust Russell Wilson more than I trust Carson Palmer in the playoffs to get it done.
I think that is reasonable. I will argue that I don't think New England's the front runner in people's minds. I see Pittsburgh out there a lot more than New England right now. But they're a front runner, and they always end up the front runner. So, okay, I'm going to give you mine because I think Mike actually doesn't know his yet.
I'm filtering.
Look, I'm going to take Arizona.
Okay.
Out of the NFC. And the more contrarian out there pick, I think, for a lot of people, this is my pick. I'm taking Kansas City out of the AFC.
Not bad.
I think Kansas City is the team that I thought looked the best towards the end of last year. I thought they looked the best in the preseason this year. And obviously they need to get some of those defensive line pieces back into the fold, but I think that there will be a force at the end of the year. And Alex Smith, I'm going to project, can have a Joe Flacco-esque type of competent playoffs to get them through. That's my pick. And in the Super Bowl, I'm going to take Arizona over Kansas City. So
sure.
But Andy,
you're
from Arizona. You homer.
All right. Yeah, you're right. But you know what? I'm taking them.
People can't really say
I'm taking them just like Sports Illustrated took them.
There you go.
All right, from the NFC, I'm going with Jason. I'm going to take the Seahawks. I think they're a tremendous team, and that's where I'm going. And with my AFC pick, I'm taking a team I think could have gone all the way to the Super Bowl if their quarterback had not broken his thumb. I'm taking the Bengals. I'm taking the Bengals, man.
I love that.
I think
pick.
the defense is still strong. I think that the offense is still strong. We remember that playoff game where the Bengals snatched defeat out of the hands of victory with some buffoonery there at the end. But I think if Andy Dalton was there, they would not have been anywhere close to that situation. So I'm taking the Bengals.
They were one of my 4 that I said could contend.
So who wins it?
I'm going to take
you
the
just
Seahawks.
made the Seahawks the champs.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Hawks.
All right, so there you go. Seattle, Arizona,
shows
New
off
England.
to a bad start.
Well, let's fight instead. Let's get into a debate.
All right.
It's time for the Fandings.com Debate of the Week.
Now we need your help on this debate, so we'll tweet out a link so that you can participate with us. Mike and I are participating in this week's debate. Jason will serve as judge
And jury.
and jury. The debate is simple. The question is this: will T.J. Yeldon be a top 20 running back this week? This question came about because when you look at our Week 1 rankings, which, by the way, are published on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, Mike has T.J. Yeldon.
I like how that changed.
What?
I thought I was arguing him as a top 12 running back, but I stand by that he will not be top 20.
I can promise you yesterday I said top 20, and you agreed.
Well, I already.
And guess what? You have him ranked 30, so it makes it really a simple battle.
I'm still in on this.
All right. So T.J. Yeldon will he be a top 20 running back in Week 1? I have him as a number 12 or 12 to 14 range, depending on your scoring system. Mike has him at 30. I think 30 is where Lindell White hangs out. I'm not sure. So who wants to go first? Do you want to?
I'll let you start.
All right. So I have T.J. Yeldon as a 12 to 14 range this week. I've loved everything I've seen from him in the preseason. I think people are off of him because they don't know how the workload and the carry split's going to be. But we've had feedback from that coaching staff that Yeldon and Ivory will have a lot of work. Ivory is not going to be the passing downs guy. There's a report this week about Ivory dealing with what Ivory deals with, which is soft tissue issues all the time. I think it was a hamstring or a groin. I don't remember at this point. But a report came out yesterday saying he's struggling with that. I think you're going to see Yeldon get off to a solid start in this game against Green Bay, be involved in the passing game heavily. I have him catching 5 or 6 passes and delivering a top 14 week, no matter what your scoring format is. That's my case.
Sure, and I can agree with some of that. I think he will be involved in the passing game. I will say if he caught 6 passes, that'd be a career high for T.J. Yeldon, who was the running back last year. He was the only guy in town, unless you have Toby Gerhart counted at the goal line, of course.
No one does.
And so here's the deal with T.J. Yeldon last year. Last year when he was the man, he was an RB1 twice. Sure, he had 2 great weeks. But if you take the average of every other week in last season, he was the running back 27. He's been over 40 receiving yards only twice. He's been, which if that's where you're counting his production from the passing game, when he was the guy, only over 40 yards twice. He's only been over 64 rushing yards 3 times. That's with a full workload. If you want to give him the 100 yards, okay, but there's just no way he's getting to that combination with Chris Ivory involved in the game. It comes down to touchdowns. If he gets in the end zone a couple times, sure, then he'll be a top 12 running back. But if he does not score, I don't see any way his production going from a full workload to whatever the percentage is, even if I'm going to give him 55% of the work, I don't see any way he comes close.
Andy, would you like a retort?
I'm going to let Jason weigh in. I'm going to say 2 things. We're going to get into this game a little bit more, so we'll talk a little bit about Green Bay and Jacksonville in a little bit. Mike knows how to debate me because he'll get under my skin with his classic Mike argument where if you take away all of his good games, he's the 27th best running back. I mean, that's exactly what he said.
No, I said he was a running back 1 twice.
You said if you take away those 2 games, he's the 27th best running back.
Correct.
That's exactly what you said.
Incorrect. Yeah. I said in the other games.
Well, that is the exact
in the
same
other
thing,
games
Mike.
means taking them away.
Yes, it does.
Oh, you should get minus points for your lying.
Here's the reality. I will now play judge and jury.
But very strong argument. I'm going to give him credit for the career high 6 reception thing.
Yeah, that's very good. I am taking away points from Mike for not realizing that is the same thing, and he still wins the argument. I don't see T.J. Yeldon being a top 20 back this week. Not that it couldn't happen, but I could not project it that way. I do think that the game script is good for him. They'll probably, in my worldview, be down. So I'm going to say on this Fandings Debate of the Week, Mike, you got it. Also, everybody out there, if you want to vote on this exact thing between Mike and Andy, download the Fandings app. And also, this Sunday, there's going to be some game time voting and debates in the Fandings app. So grab it now and then play with us on Sunday at fandings.com.
And let him know the footballer sent you if you grab it.
All right, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at the FF Ballers. We're going to get into the news here in just a minute. If you have questions you want to submit to the show, you can also do that on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. And best of all, get involved with us and the fantasy community. There's almost 2,000 of you now at jointhefoot.com. Getting involved, answering questions. We're there. We deliver an extra episode every week, giveaways every month, a lot of very fun stuff. It's a great way to walk through the fantasy football season with a bunch of like-minded, passionate fantasy football fans. And so you want to check that out at jointhefoot.com. Let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
There's so much going on. So much going on. Very excited. Carlos Hyde cleared for football activity. So stuff going on for Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, well, he had the concussion problem, so he was kind of on the alert that if he was going to miss, the Big Salad becomes a sneaky start. I still think that Sean Drone, the Big Salad, he's an okay guy to throw in there if you are desperate in a PPR league, but Hyde's going to be the man.
I saw Sean Drone dropped in a couple leagues this week. Do you pick up Sean Drone?
If I have a burner spot, yeah.
Otherwise, I would say no. Now with the news that Hyde is back, my
Sean
hope
Drone
in
or
picking up
Sean Drone or Buck Allen?
Buck Allen.
Okay.
As of this moment,
Sorry
I
to
would
cut you
rather
off
have
there.
I would take Drone.
All right, Justin Forsett says he's the starter.
You're darn right he
He
said that.
says it's his job to go out there and dominate.
It is, and he is. I still going back for months. Look, I get that there are great backups behind him, but one of those backups is injured, and I mean,
And one of those is Terrence West.
right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's been a little bit of a drumbeat going for him, but he's not been that good over his career. So am fine with
I've got
Forsett this week.
I have news for you two Seattle fans. Pete Carroll has come out and said some differing things about Jimmy Graham. On Monday, he said he has no expectations that he'll play. On Wednesday, they said his chances are good, and he was a full participant in practice. So now it actually looks likely that Jimmy Graham will suit up,
if
put
he
a
can
uniform
play,
on, pads.
If he can play this week, there is a very good matchup against Miami. And I would say this: we didn't do yesterday a segment that we'll do as the week goes on, but he would be my sit of the week if he is starting. And I'm just recommending to people out there.
Patella spite?
That is 100% Patella spite.
Man.
I don't think that he can come back this quick from an injury that no one has ever come back this quick from, and also be, elite enough.
Be better than he was last year?
Right, be better than he.
Oh, that's a different voice.
I can't do it. But Victor Cruz came back so easily.
Yeah, case in point.
Thomas Rawls will be on a snap count week 1.
Yeah,
if there was a sit of the week for me, it would have been Thomas Rawls.
Well, I am happy that Mike did not take my Thomas Rawls top 24 lock. It does certainly look like it will be the C-Mike 1-2 punch. C-Mike will have the first punch to Thomas Rawls' second punch.
You called the locksmith on that one? You got that one cracked back open?
Yeah, that makes me sad.
All right, there was a big headline that came out from Jim Caldwell saying he doesn't envision Ameer Abdullah playing a workhorse role.
But you got to dig a little deeper into the quote because he says, I don't envision him carrying the ball 30 times. I don't think
and then he goes on to say,
does.
And then he goes on to say, is he tough enough to do that? I think so. Can he handle that? I think he can. But he's a weapon that we need to get involved in other ways. Is kind of more the actual quote.
But the reality is they're not going. I mean, he's not a workhorse back.
Correct, but he will be used. I mean, he is a first and second down type back, and then if they are in the no huddle, he will be on the field still for third downs. He'll have entire drives probably to himself, but so will Theo Riddick. And then when they get on the goal line, that's the worry: is it going to be Zach Zinn or something like that?
I'm gonna make a very bold week 1 bet with you here.
Okay,
Do you want to hear this?
I do, because I actually like Ameer Abdullah this week.
I know you do, and I do not. But the argument here, what did you say? He'll be on the field 4 drives. I want to bet you that he will not ever be on the field for an entire drive. But
I mean, what percentage are you talking about? Because I think that it's very rare.
100%?
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying when I say he's going to be on the field an entire drive, I still think they're going to be switching guys in and out, just like every team does. I mean, it's very rare.
That would be the actual definition of not on the field for an entire drive.
I think it's pretty rare for a running back to take an entire drive. Especially
then why say he will be on the field for the entire drive?
Well, I am saying he will be out there for the majority of an entire drive, just like players that we would say he's out there all the time. No player is out there. No running back is out there all the time. But I would still say with plenty of other players, and I think you would too, this guy is on the field all the time. Okay, so maybe it's a little hyperbolic. I'm not saying that he gets 100% of snaps through a drive, but I think there will be drives where he is out there on first down, on second down, on third down on the same drive.
You just need to get him in on a 3 and out, and you would win that bet.
All right, you've spun me into a circle somewhere in my brain. Jamal Charles, limited in practice Wednesday.
He's not going to play.
I didn't stat Jamal Charles this week.
I didn't either.
I gave him, I think, 1 carry.
Emmanuel Sanders, 3-year, $33 million contract. I think he's one of the guys that has been very disrespected in fantasy circles this offseason. You're talking about a player that came from a number 5 overall season to last year. What's the perception? Do you know where he finished, Mike? Because I do, and I'm curious if you know where he finished last year.
I feel like he was still top 24.
Okay, and I think I already asked Jason. He was 18.
Yeah,
on that Peyton Manning-led
with
team.
really bad quarterback.
He was given a 3-year, $33 million extension. I think Emmanuel Sanders is okay. I think he's okay. This week it's going to be a little tough. ESPN Patriots reporter says Rob Gronkowski has a hamstring injury, not 100% healthy.
Yeah, well, we saw him leave the practice, took some time off. It's the Patriots, so you never know, but I fully expect him to play. I don't think this is changing that at all.
Okay. And Devonta Parker listed again as did not practice. He's not playing this week.
No, he's not.
He's not playing this week. So I think that is it for the news. We're going to jump into the forecast.
All right, before we jump in the forecast, I want to thank today's sponsor. That is Pristine Auction, the best sports memorabilia site on the internet. Look, I'm on there nearly daily. You know what I got recently?
I wish you were lying.
I know.
No, this is true.
I think he is lying in the sense he said nearly.
Because
Yeah.
it is daily.
Yeah, like
You're
multi
right.
times a day.
You know what I got? I got a 100% authentic Tyrann Mathews signed jersey. He even put on there, I'm the Honey Badger. I cannot wait to get this thing for pristine. Put this on the wall. Join my collection. Are you a collector? Are you a collector like me? Then you're going to love
You're going to have to buy a bigger house, Mike.
I am. I need more wall space. You're going to love Pristine Auction. They got daily auctions. They got weekly auctions. They have something for everybody. They have something for everybody's budget. If you may be thinking, oh, this is out. I can't get in on this. Trust me. Just have a look at Pristine Auction, and you will recognize immediately that you can get in on this and get some authentic signed merchandise on your wall. This is what I need you to do, Foot Clan. You go to pristineauction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com. You make a free account, completely free account. Tell them the footballers sent you. And this is a site, if you bid and you get outbid, you don't pay anything. You can get on it for free. So pristineauction.com, trust me.
Yeah, and we also want to thank our other sponsor, SeatGeek. I mean, SeatGeek, look, games are here. Games are tonight. You know what's crazy? If right now you're in Denver and you're like, well, I can't get a seat for the game. Yes, you can. Go to SeatGeek. You can always find tickets for your shows on SeatGeek. They are just about, I mean, when I find other places that are sold out, I can find them on SeatGeek very often. And the coolest part about it is they take tickets in from all the other sites and give you the best price, and I get to pick my seat. No more of this dumb best price available, and then I get a random seat that I can't say, oh, my friend's over in this section. I want to be in that section with them. Pick where you sit, get a great price, and it's super easy with the SeatGeek app. So here's what you do. Get the SeatGeek app. When you do that, enter the promo code FOOTBALLERS, and you will get $20 back in your pocket after you make your first ticket purchase. So download the free SeatGeek app and enter promo code FOOTBALLERS today.
Fantasy Forecast.
It's a beautiful thing to be previewing fantasy football matchups, NFL matchups here. So let's do it.
All right.
We got the Panthers in Denver facing the Broncos. This over-under is very low. It's at 41.5.
Yep.
So we're expecting this to be what it appears to be, a defensive type of matchup. You have a rookie Trevor Siemian getting his first big-time start. You've got Cam Newton, and you got the Super Bowl rematch.
This is, as far as the quarterback spectrum, number one overall Cam versus 7th round pick Trevor Siemian. I mean, that's a wide gap as far as draft stuff.
That's kind of the
concerned.
decision that our listeners make every time they're like, do I go with Andy's rankings or Mike Siemian over here? So starting at the quarterback position, I don't think there's a debate. This is not a head-to-head matchup.
Look, the
in fantasy.
question I think people are going to ask is, look, I drafted Cam. I took him with my 2nd-round pick. I took him with my 3rd-round pick. Am I really not going to play him this week?
Yep.
And that's a tough decision when you put that kind of draft capital into guys. So who
I can tell you right now, I received that question this morning on Join the Foot. Somebody drafted Cam. They had 3 different options, and they asked me whether I would bench Cam for them. It was Derek Carr.
Oh.
It was Jameis Winston, and I don't remember the third one. I think it was Alex Smith was the third one. They said, do you go and grab any of those guys?
All of them.
Now, my answer was not go grab all of them.
No, I wouldn't
Drop
grab all
everyone
of
from
them.
your bench and grab all the quarterbacks.
I'm saying I would play any of those guys over Cam this week.
You would have the courage to do that.
When it comes to Alex Smith, I probably wouldn't pull the trigger on that one. But Derek Carr, I wouldn't even hesitate for one moment. Derek Carr is my number 3 ranked quarterback this week in a juicy matchup against the New Orleans Saints, who are the worst of the worst when it comes to were last year.
I think that's the right way to
bad.
talk about it.
Well, I agree. We don't know how the defenses are going to be this year, but you could say we don't know how Andrew Luck's going to be or Aaron Rodgers or Cam Newton. But we look back at previous years.
I was just saying we don't know exactly what it's going to land.
Sure.
The end of the year.
I think at the end of the year, with the improvements New Orleans has made to their defense, they are one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
And that's fair. That's a fair statement.
And so I would play Derek Carr in a heartbeat.
Okay. All right.
Who did you tell him to pick up?
I said I think Winston's a good play. I don't think Carr was actually part of that group.
Oh,
so
okay.
Would you play Winston?
Winston I have ranked as at 18, and
would you have the courage to put him in?
Yeah, I would. If I had
Okay.
Winston and Cam, I would.
I said I probably wouldn't. I said I'd probably just play Cam. I don't think I have the courage. You have to draft. You have to take another spot on your roster for a week to do that. I think I'd just try to get through week 1 with Cam. That's what I would do.
Sure.
So, let's talk about the running backs. Jonathan Stewart, C.J. Anderson. Are they start worthy this week?
Repeats previous conversation for the running backs. Look, I'm okay with C.J. Anderson in this situation. Jonathan Stewart, though, is going to be a tough start for me. If you have somebody on your bench, maybe you grabbed Ware. I'm playing Ware over Jonathan Stewart. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I would prefer to play over Stewart. Anderson, like I said, I feel okay about it.
Stewart's going to get volume.
He'll get volume, and
he just might not produce. It might be one of those 18 for 50.
Yeah, and so you're really hoping he gets a touchdown.
Okay, and so you guys have where's C.J. Anderson this week? I have him at 24. So does Mike. Jason has him a little lower. You have him at 35.
I believe you have him at 35.
Oh,
and I have him at 24, and Mike has him at 18.
You're correct.
Yes.
You're correct. I was. You
were looking at the consensus.
I
rankings.
was looking. All right, so
he
there
is
you
our
go.
24th.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, so he's a borderline RB2 this week for C.J. Anderson. You know, when it comes to running backs, when you win the game, running backs if we knew for sure who was going to win a game, that team's running backs usually have a much stronger fantasy output. That's just provable. In a game like this, even though all three of us said we believe that Denver's going to win, this is going to be a close game. You can't just go, one team's going to win this, and so start that running back.
This whole entire game can be broken down into, these are the guys that I feel comfortable playing. Demaryius Thomas, Greg Olsen. And I'm okay with C.J. Anderson. But other than that,
I mean, you're talking about a run defense last year.
I'm
between
trying
the
not
two.
to play him.
Panthers are 4th. Broncos were 3rd. Last year, pass defense, Broncos were the 1st. Panthers were 11th. It's going to be a low-scoring game. People have been asking about Demaryius Thomas, so I'm glad you brought him up. You're comfortable playing him.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to the Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are favored at home by 3 points. This game's an indoor game. You have Jameis Winston and Matt Ryan. You have Doug Martin and his counterpart, Sims, and then you have Devonta Freeman on the other side. And then you have guys that I have projected for a very big week, Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson, taking on Julio Jones and his friends. Julio and friends. So how do you see this game breaking down from a fantasy perspective? Who are you comfortable with? What are the decisions you're making here?
I'm comfortable with a lot of guys in this game. I think that this game will be it's not going to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. But you
It'll
don't
be
have,
up there though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to be a low scoring game either. So Doug Martin, Sims, Freeman, Julio, Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, I think all of them are startable. And this is one of those nice games where you drafted these players in your startup league fantasy draft is pretty much the exact value they're going to be getting for this game, because these are kind of two middle of the road to lesser than teams. So I think the matchup is fine for where you drafted them.
Yeah, I think this game will be a high-scoring game. I mean, Vegas has it at 47 points. These two teams, they met in shootout type of games last year. And if you're starting a tight end from Tampa, or would you ever start a tight end from Tampa?
I'm not starting Seferian Jenkins until I see it.
Yeah, I wouldn't, but if I had to pick one, it would be ASJ.
We're going to talk a little bit more later about Vincent Jackson. He's going to be featured in one of the segments later on, so I don't want to get too into it there. But I have Mike Evans very high this week. In fact, we all have Mike Evans inside of our top 10, and so I think we feel very confident with the fantasy pieces that you've drafted being started in this game.
I also really like Devonta Freeman in this game.
Sure. I have Devonta Freeman. He's one of my highest.
I think he's a top 5 back for me this week.
He is for me as well. He's my number 2. He's my number 2 back.
2 for you, 4 for me, 7 for Mike.
Yeah, and actually in full PPR, yeah, about the same. So, all right, the Bills and what are you laughing at?
I like him a lot. Let me see where I got him. Oh, number 2. This just was funny.
All right. Bills and the Ravens. What do we got in this game?
Look, I want. There's some pieces in here I like. I will give a spoiler alert here for our league of record. I am a Phillip Rivers owner. I drafted him because on the season I believe in Rivers. Phillip Rivers is taking on the Chiefs on the road, as we're going to talk about a little bit later. I don't want any part of that action this week, so I have picked up Tyrod Taylor, and I'm going to play him over Phillip Rivers.
That's a bit of a spoiler alert. I did not know that for our league of record.
That happened this morning.
Is that because you looked at my quarterback rankings this week?
Because I looked at my own, where I have Phillip Rivers very low.
Yeah, I have Tyrod Taylor at number 8 this week.
Yeah, I've got
really like the matchup. Feel very confident in that.
For fantasy purposes, I'm curious your guys' take. Right now, Vegas has this 44.5 points. That's pretty much like right in the middle.
An average game.
That's an average game. Would you guys take the over or the under on that? Because I think
I would take the over.
I would take the over.
Yeah, and I worry that it's going to be more of an under. I just see two teams that are kind of working so many different things out. But the defenses for both, obviously the Bills' defense this offseason has just been decimated by injury. They've lost so many guys. That's not very helpful. The weapons are there for the Ravens in the passing game. We don't know who to start, but for Flacco's going to get whoever, the production from whoever catches the ball. Who are you willing to start here?
And from a Ravens standpoint?
Yeah.
I've told people Aiken's the safest of the wide
I'll
receivers.
start Aiken. If you are in that running back pickle, I'm okay with Justin Forsett. I don't love it. I would prefer a different option.
Let me lay out some decisions that people might be facing. Would you start Justin Forsett against Buffalo, or would you start Jeremy Hill against the Jets?
Ooh,
I'm
going
Jeremy
Forsett.
I would start Hill.
Okay, I think I'd go Forsett there. Would you start Justin Forsett against Buffalo or Carlos Hyde against the Los Angeles Rams?
Forsett. I was one of my biggest surprises this week was how low Carlos Hyde ended up in my rankings.
Seems like Mike would choose
I think
Hyde
I would go
by
Hyde,
a lot. Last one here, Chris Ivory against Green Bay or Justin Forsett against Buffalo?
Ooh,
I'm going to make it the Justin Forsett sweep
Yeah,
here.
you got the triple. I would go Forsett in that.
So if you're facing some of those, what about, let me put this one out there since we talked about him, Jonathan Stewart against Denver or Justin Forsett against Buffalo?
I would go Stewart.
Yeah, that's a line I wouldn't cross. I'd go Stewart.
All right, the Bears travel to Houston to take on the Texans. I do not think this game will be close. I think this game will be a blowout. Vegas has the line at 44 right in the middle. I think Houston is going to mop the floor with Chicago. I'm sorry if you're a Chicago fan out there. I just don't think your season's getting off to a good start, and I think it's partially because the schedule is a little rough to you right here. You have to travel to Houston, take on a very good defense, and what I think is going to be just a very solid offense. I think a very firm, strong, solid offense. Lamar Miller gets to make his debut with the Texans. I have him rated very highly this week. Do you guys feel the same about Lamar Miller?
I love Lamar Miller this week, and I'm going, look.
Number one for you.
I got him as my number one guy. I got him opening up against the Bears. The Bears last year were the 22nd best. So I don't know if you can really call it best, but so they ranked 22nd against the run. It was a struggle all year for the Bears, and like we've said, we don't have a ton to go on. We have no current data. So I'm going with the Bears to still have a bad rushing defense. I think Lamar Miller is going to get a ton of work, and I'm with you, Andy, on the game script. I think that Houston is going to win this game kind of going away, which to me, game script wise, points to Lamar Miller getting that workload in all facets of the game.
One surprise for me when I was diving into this game, doing the research, was Jeremy Langford. I assumed I would be very, very low on Jeremy Langford because of the matchup, but the more that I looked into it, the more I thought Jeremy Langford will probably be okay because of his work in the passing game. Those three games that Forte missed last year he caught 13 passes in those 3 games combined, and when he played a good defense, like against the LA Rams, he had 7 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. Now, I'm not projecting anything like that, but I'm saying that if the game does get out of hand the way that you expect, I don't think that's going to rule Langford out of this game. And so he should be an okay start, an RB2. And I thought coming in that this was a guy I'm just going to avoid.
Yeah, I think if he struggles, do not freak out about Langford either.
Sure.
For
Right.
week one.
Yeah.
And, we should have said it at the top when we started overviewing the games. Week one's the worst.
Oh, by
week
a
one's
mile.
the hardest week to project. I mean, we don't get to go back and look at trends. We have no trends. We have no perception of exactly how some of the carry counts will break out. We don't understand the defensive, the trends on the defensive side of the ball. And so we have to go based on what we have in front of us, which is some of last year's data, what we've seen and heard and talked about on this show and throughout seen in training camp and preseason. And that's how we project week one. But it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy a road in the beginning as we get these things established.
I'm still good with Alshon because Jay Cutler will feed him.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I'm with Jason. I'm okay with Langford because if things go bad, he'll get into the passing game.
All right, we're going to move on now, talk about the Packers at the Jaguars in Jacksonville, also known as...
Andy's almost upset of the week.
Your Gus Bradley love is off the charts here.
I love you, Gus. The Jaguars are 5.5-point dogs at home, which is just
Weird. That's so weird.
just a shame. Come on now. It's my almost upset of the week, Jacksonville at home. You can't stop the gradient. You can't stop the gradient
you
helmet.
can't stop the Rattlers.
To me, if you are projecting this game, you're saying, and if Vegas is saying it's a 5.5-point underdog for Jacksonville, you're saying that the defense for Green Bay is going to show up. And so, last year they were a good pass defense. And so you might say, okay, that's what you need to stop the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. And
First-round pick, Allen Hurns.
right, from yesterday's show. Yeah. But I think they have enough in the running game. I think they have enough to compete if this game becomes a shootout. And so I'm going to take them as my look, they're not going to win. They're my almost upset. Or will they? We'll find out. So you're starting Rodgers. You're starting Lacey. You're starting Randall Cobb. Are you starting Jordan Nelson?
I'm going to start him.
I am as well.
Not worry about a snap count on that side of the ball.
I worry about a snap count, but I'm still the weapon that is Jordy Nelson. I'm not going to sit it down.
Yeah, and they're going to need to figure
I just
that
called
out.
him a thing. Sorry, Jordy.
They're going to need to figure out what Jordy can do, and even if he's on a snap count, Aaron Rodgers will be looking to him, and he's the type of player that can break any play wide open for a long touchdown. And if the Jaguars are similar to what we saw from their defense in years past, which I will say this, of all the teams on paper for defense, they have improved their defense on paper just about more than anyone else, or at least, they're in that conversation.
The world is waiting for Gus Bradley and his defensive genius and the personnel to match up into that, to where George
waiting.
Clooney and Marky Mark might show up.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think it'll happen week one either.
I think their flight has been delayed.
My hope for an almost upset there is in what we see, a 48 over-under, a higher scoring type of game, a game where there are some plays that are broken wide open. We talked at length about Yeldon. I don't know if there are any other big start-sit questions here. Would you guys feel very comfortable starting? Let me ask you this question. Julius Thomas is annoying. Somehow always not excited to talk about him.
Yeah.
Would you start him or Jared Cook in this game at tight end?
I think that
because of the higher scoring game?
I think there are better options out there. If I'm starting guys, I think they're both outside of my top 12. Either one, if you have to start them, you've got the chance that they put in a good fantasy game here. And that's kind of the problem that I always had with Julius Thomas is he's so touchdown dependent. And so he could get a touchdown, and then he's absolutely fine. Anytime a tight end gets a touchdown, he's fine.
That's what Kyle Rudolph keeps saying.
I expect a different game script. I think Green Bay will get ahead early, and that has always been good for the fantasy output of the Jaguars' offense, but that is more in the realm of Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, than in Julius Thomas when you're down and you're slinging the ball around.
All right, we got the Chargers heading to Kansas City to take on my Super Bowl champion. Oh, wait, Super Bowl contender. Sorry, Kansas City Chiefs. Last year was not kind to Phillip Rivers in matchups against the Chiefs. He threw a total, let me count here, 0 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Both of the games were in the second half of the season when Keenan Allen was out, when Kansas City was on a roll, and I believe Phillip Rivers was throwing the ball to who was it? Dontrell Inman, yeah, and Danny Woodhead, of course.
Oh, of course.
Did you guys see that article that Danny Woodhead wrote to his younger self?
I saw. I didn't get a chance to read it.
It was pretty cool. I mean, he was passed on by everybody. The only reason, I mean, he basically dominated in college after being passed on by Nebraska, and nobody was interested in him. He was not invited to anything. Nebraska eventually gave him a pro day, makes the NFL, major injury year one, fight. You know, long odds for Danny Woodhead, and really now he's going into his 9th season somehow. So, but when we look at this game, there's a built-in water bet here in this game already because Mike and I we have our projections for Week 1. We see things. Look, we just talked about how Week 1's a little bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah,
a lot of our rankings are aligned. This is an area where we're not going to just go chalk so that we have 3 guys that align. That's not what this show does. We're trying to give you our honest opinions. Sometimes they're very different. I don't know if I've ever seen them as different as this week.
Yes.
Ever. Because I have Keenan Allen very low, somewhere in the late 20s, early.
I'll verify where they are right now.
Okay. Keenan Allen, Jeremy Maclin, Mike and I have them at diametrically opposed rankings. I have Maclin, I think, at 8, Keenan at 9.
You have Keenan Allen at 34. And I'm sorry, I was already in the search. You have Maclin at 5, yes.
No, that is not true. I do not have.
Oh, this hasn't. Okay,
that one hasn't updated.
We have updated.
We have
them,
Maclin
yes.
at 8. Mike has Keenan Allen at 9, and then we have them reversed on the other side, where Mike doesn't like Maclin and I don't like Keenan Allen. And so, are you fine doing a straight up Maclin Keenan Allen water bet?
Absolutely. We'll put that on the board.
Water bet.
If this was a Fandings debate of the week that I was going to vote on, I would be on Andy's side with Jeremy Maclin.
So here's why I like Keenan Allen. It's a matter of they're not going to be able to run the ball, the Chargers, and they're going to. I think the game script ends up in a classic Chargers fashion with Phillip Rivers picking the team up on his back in the second half and having to sling it out
for 0 touchdowns.
Well, maybe for 0 touchdowns. I don't have Keenan with a very high chance to score. Why? And it's not that I love him. I mean, 9, I guess I like him a reasonable amount. But for Maclin, I think that it's a Spencer Ware game. I think Ware is going to absolutely dominate the Chargers, and I don't see a need for them to feed Maclin at all. I think that they can get up rather quickly, and that Alex Smith will game manage and let Spencer Ware take them to victory.
Let's talk about what there are a lot of decisions to be made in this game. This is probably one of the biggest games for decision-making fantasy purposes. You said you're sitting Rivers down. You don't want to play him against the Chiefs.
Correct.
What about Spencer Ware versus the field, so to speak? We have Spencer Ware ranked very high this week.
He's our consensus 10. Both of you have him at 9. I'm pulling him down. I have him at 18, which is still an RB2.
Okay, so Spencer Ware is start-worthy.
Yes.
Yeah, I love Spencer Ware this week. Mike and I have him, like you said, top 10. Melvin Gordon, do you play him against the Chiefs week 1?
I don't think so. If you can avoid it, I would. He's down in an RB3 category right now. I think the game script is slightly better for a Danny Woodhead because, again, you're not going to be able to run easily against the Chiefs. But I don't think it's a really great game for Woodhead either. They would be in flex consideration in that RB3 range, but I'm hoping that I have a better option maybe at wide receiver to flex in there above a guy like Melvin Gordon.
If I'm in a standard league, I'm sitting them both.
There's been a lot of hesitancy I've seen from fantasy owners about Antonio Gates this week. I think that is manifesting itself because of how good Kansas City was against the tight end last year. And so people are saying, do you play Gates or do you go Dwayne Allen?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Well, I know my answer, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I think I would. Oh, man.
I'm starting Gates. I have a lot of confidence in Gates this week.
Yeah.
I would not.
Gates, I brought up the numbers before. Outside of Rob Gronkowski, Gates has the most touchdowns at the tight end position over the last, I believe, 17 starts, 21 starts, something like that. He's still doing it, but people really don't like playing him. It's like the Frank Gore of the tight end position. You don't really want to start him, but he kind of should always probably be started to me, I'm not going to be put off by the Kansas City matchup.
So, to be clear, before we leave this matchup, if you have Jamal Charles, sit him down. Even if he's active, he's not going to get enough touches.
Yes.
And I just want to throw this out there because he hasn't been talked about at all in forever anywhere. But should Charkandrick West end up with a major role in this game, the fantasy community will be lighting some shorts on fire.
Yes.
All right, we are going to jump now into our starts of the week. We're going to cover the rest of the matchups tomorrow. Do you guys have these things figured out? Are you got that week one confidence?
Yes.
My body is ready.
Starts of the week.
All right, one of my favorite segments, probably my favorite segment of the entire week.
That escalated quickly.
Look, yes, it's my favorite segment.
It's okay. I mean, I like it. I love it. It's my
the
favorite.
best.
I said it's one of my favorite, probably my favorite.
Yes. We just like throwing things on you mentally.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right, let's start with Mike.
All right, I'm going to start at the quarterback position. Look, I'm riding the snake. I'm sending in the car. Sending in Derek Carr against New Orleans. They're going to be in the dome.
Send in the car.
Yes!
Send in the car.
Very nice.
I didn't know it was ready.
There you go.
All right, look, the Vegas agrees with me. They have this over-under at 51. They expect a lot of points to go on the board, a lot. And the Saints are favored by 1. So the implied team total for both teams is extremely high. I want in on this action. So Derek Carr I think he's a top 5 guy for me, so he's my start of the week.
Yeah, I said earlier he was my number 3 quarterback this week. That is why the matchup is great. His first 2 years, he's proven that he can do it. And if you look at his game splits between easy matchups and difficult matchups, he really does well against the easier matchups. So I expect he'll have a good game here. I'm going to do my next start of the week because it pairs. It pairs perfectly with this, and that's at the wide receiver position.
Oh, let's stay with quarterbacks. Let's give our 3 quarterback starts of the week.
Fine.
I mean,
feng shui, man.
I was trying to connect it. All right. Then I'll do my quarterback. My quarterback is a very, very similar reason to Derek Carr. That is Matthew Stafford, and the reason is because that Vegas over-under is 50.5 points. What we've seen going back, I think, until like 2005 or 6 is that these week 1 Vegas lines win games are very, very highly rated on Vegas lines. They tend to outdo that projection. They go over that. So there's a lot of those games that go for crazy high points. And when I look at the matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Detroit Lions, I see 2 offenses that want to work fast, that have the capability of scoring points, and I see 2 defenses that can't really do it, and 2 run games that can't slow the clock down. So I just think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game, and Matthew Stafford should be fine. I don't think they're going to be punching in touchdowns with Zach Zinner. I think he's going to be throwing touchdowns to, even if it's to Abdullah or to Marvin Jones or to Eric Ebron or Golden Tate. So Matthew Stafford, to me, is my start of the week.
All right, my start of the week at the quarterback position is Kirk Cousins of the Washington Redskins.
Yes.
I've got him going into Pittsburgh. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think it'll be a very entertaining game, and I think Kirk Cousins can keep the momentum up, do enough this week to warrant his very high rating in my rankings. I'm as my number 3 quarterback this week, making him my start of the week. Mike has him at 5. Jason does not have the same opinion, but I like Kirk Cousins a lot this week. He's my start of the week. At quarterback, let's go ahead and shift over to the running back position. There's really only one thing to say here.
I'm wide awake.
You know it. We're going again?
Mike has been insufferable with the awakening rhetoric. Wasn't there another quote yesterday?
Yeah, there was. Teammate Doug Baldwin was asked who has been the most impressive player for the Seahawks over training camp in the preseason. He said, it's been Christian Michael. He's had an awakening.
So it just doesn't
Even
stop.
the team is getting on it.
Mike, look at the camera and give him what you've been giving me every day. Yeah, this nonsense. I have to turn. He's always doing that when I'm not looking.
I'm wide awake.
And And I turn and I just see him. He's been staring at me, using his fingers to open his eyes larger. That is
Whenever there is a piece of C-Mike news. Now, I say all of this because Christine Michael's my start of the week.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
What is happening?
Oh, it's a great time to be alive,
This
everyone.
world is crazy, but look, I love Christine Michael this week. I think Thomas Rawls is going to be on a very limited snap count. Pete Carroll's already come out and said, look, this is Thomas Rawls' second preseason game. That's what the coach has said. What does the starting running back get on a second preseason game? They get about 15 snaps if they're lucky. I think Christine Michael is going to run wild in Seattle.
Against the Dolphins.
Look,
I'm wide awake.
I'm on board at least for 1 week.
Seattle's favored by 10.5 points
Oh.
at home. Points will be put up on the clock. They will be in a lead. The running back for Seattle will be great. That's why I said early this week that Thomas Rawls was like locked in to be at least an RB2 because I assumed he was the starter. Whoever the starter is will be great. I think all three of us have Christian Michael ranked very highly. My running back start of the week, I'm not going quite as high on our rankings, digging a little deeper, and I'm going with a guy who has had some ups and downs this offseason in Ryan Mathews for the Philadelphia Eagles. The reality in this game, it's not going to be necessarily a super high score, but the matchup is great against the Cleveland Browns. Nobody's scared of that Browns run defense. And in addition to that, you've got a rookie quarterback who is, they're probably going to try to set him up in Carson Wentz to succeed, try to run to open up the pass. So I think the volume will be there for him to put up a decent RB2 week. So I'm saying if you've got Ryan Mathews, if you've got Ryan Mathews, but you drafted Melvin Gordon way ahead, don't do that. Put in Mathews. I would be confident to do so.
Mike, who's your start of the week?
I'm going even deeper.
This is
Even
probably your
deeper than
boldest pick.
And I'm going with it, assuming you're in a half-point or full-point PPR, I'm going with Charles Sims. Atlanta's defense, they gave up the most catches to running backs in the league for a defense last year. We've seen that Charles Sims is heavily involved in that work type for Tampa Bay. And so if you are struggling for a flex play and you're not liking your options, I think that Charles Sims can be a very sneaky play this week.
All right, well, who's your wide receiver start of the week?
I'm piggybacking with Kirk Cousins. You beaming me up with DeSean Jackson, who has looked just fantastic through the preseason. He is a physical specimen of greatness for what he is, which is very fast and very athletic. I think Kirk Cousins is going to target him a ton. I expect that this is one of those games where he could easily go vintage D Jackson, get you a 60-yard bomb, so he's my start.
I think he could have two. What's ironic is
sounds like a double start.
In my our league of record, I am starting on my roster my start of the week at wide receiver over your start of the week in DeSean Jackson, who I also like.
You're a crazy person.
I might be crazy, but my start of the week is
Crazy like a fox.
Crazy like a fox. Michael Crabtree. Again, I am pairing him with my number 3 quarterback in Derek Carr. I expect this to be a game, just like Vegas says, it's the highest projected total point output. And the thing is with Crabtree is I think his floor is extremely safe. He's a little bit less volatile than DeSean Jackson. He doesn't need that bomb, but his ceiling is very high. I think he's got very high probability of catching, 7 passes and a good chance at a touchdown. He's the type of guy that you might have drafted to not start. I'm saying this is a good matchup, and he is going to have a fine fantasy week this week. I do agree his ceiling is not what DeSean Jackson's is.
My start of the week at the wide receiver position is one of my biggest surprises on my rankings this week, and it's Vincent Jackson. I love Vincent Jackson this week.
Could turn back time.
Hey, you know who turned back time last year for 10 catches, 147 yards, and a touchdown against the Carolina Panthers?
Who was that?
That was Vincent Jackson.
Booyah!
Wow.
Vincent Jackson last year. Look, he was marred by injury during the majority of the season beyond that point, but he is not done. If you saw the preseason games, if you saw his performances out there, this is a team that's going to open it up more. Vincent Jackson is more than capable, more than physically capable of taking a big role in this offense. It's not going to be the Mike Evans show all year long. I love Vincent Jackson this week
I dig it, man.
against Atlanta. So at tight end, I'm going to give you tried and true here, Jason Witten. I think he's going to be a resource for Dak Prescott in his first game against the Giants to start the season. I'm not projecting anything more than what Jason Witten is, which is just consistent, chance for a touchdown. You saw him catch just a great touchdown in the preseason from Prescott. I'll take Jason Witten this week as my start of the week at the tight end position if you're struggling or if you have a guy that you're not confident in.
I'm going to roll again with one of those high Vegas scoring games for my start of the week with Dwayne Allen. Dwayne Allen, here's a stat for you. In his entire career, the first game he plays,
Oh, dear.
he has never not scored a touchdown.
Negative.
That's right. You have
In the first game he plays each season?
Yeah, every season of his
I
career.
thought you meant like in the first game he plays in his career, he's never not scored a touchdown.
As in every season opener for him, he scores a touchdown.
That's kind of
So
crazy.
it's a guarantee, right?
So
I mean, lock
everyone
it in.
should have drafted him and traded him.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I am
You like him
starting
this
Dwayne Allen in a couple of our leagues.
All
so
right.
I believe it.
All right, and I'm digging a little bit deeper. If you are struggling at the tight end position, I'm throwing it up in the air. I'm pulling out the outlaw. Jesse James. I like him to go 6-shooter against Washington.
Oh, my gosh. Go 6-shooter.
Look, Jesse, when you're
He's your Huckleberry?
absolutely when you're grabbing a tight end and you're saying I'm going to start this guy, it's because you're hoping for a touchdown. I think this is a great situation for Jesse James. Ladarius Green, as we know, will not be playing on Sunday. And for a guy that's probably available on your waiver wire, I think there is a great chance for a touchdown for Jesse James.
I like Jesse James. I think it's a good decision this week. I think he's Heath Miller with legs, as I said last week. He can move a little bit. He's athletic. Big Ben knows how to use the other pieces in that offense, and he's lost Martavis Bryant. He's lost Lev Bell for this week. Jesse James is a great pick. So those are our starts of the week. Hopefully you're getting ready for your Season 1 matchup tonight and beyond, and we're excited to hear how your week goes. Excited to get some data into the system, so to speak, so we can kind of figure out what's going on here.
I can't wait to overreact, everybody.
Yeah, that will be very fun next week, but we'll be back tomorrow. We'll review the rest of the games,
Ooh, we can overreact tomorrow.
Yes.
at least to one game.
Cam Newton.
What else do we have going on tomorrow,
Terrible.
guys?
Tomorrow we're breaking down more matchups. Is there something else? Oh, and we're going to talk wait.
Chris-
I don't even know what's going on
We
tomorrow,
got more
guys.
matchups.
I'm out of it.
We've got Chris Meany, right, for the our
Daily dose.
daily dose.
Tentatively scheduled.
Tentatively scheduled for the for our DFS segment. We also next week, just if you're wondering, our streaming quarterback options begin next week, so you can kind of because we'll have 1 week of starts and guys that are on the waiver wire.
And
You'll
most
know.
likely you're playing the guy you drafted, unless you're like me and you drafted Phillip Rivers and you're pivoting.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on the Fantasy Footballers podcast today. Check out fantasyjocks.com if you need a trophy or anything for your league. Check them out. Use the promo code Footballer.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.